My name is Elijah, and this is the story of my unimaginable, vivid near-death experience that has haunted me ever since. It's not something I've shared publicly before, but I've been told it's worth telling, not just for me, but for others who might find meaning in it. I'm a pastor by calling, serving a small but devoted congregation, but what I experienced was anything but ordinary. It started like any other Saturday morning. I'd decided to go hiking to clear my mind. The trails outside the city always gave me peace, a break from the noise of life. The sun was just peeking over the hills, painting the sky with hues of orange and gold. I remember thinking how beautiful it was, how alive I felt, until I didn't. I had just started descending a steep trail when my foot slipped on a patch of loose gravel. The fall was sudden and violent. I tumbled down the rocky slope, the world spinning around me. Then everything stopped. No sound, no sensation, just a profound, eerie silence. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't on the trail anymore. I was standing in the middle of a city, but it wasn't a city I recognized. The sky above me was an unnatural shade of deep red, as if the heavens themselves were bleeding. Skyscrapers loomed around me, their windows shattered, their facades blackened as if consumed by fire. The streets were in chaos, people running, screaming, clutching at each other in terror. I looked around trying to make sense of it. The air was heavy with smoke, and the ground beneath my feet trembled as if the earth was alive and angry. I heard the distant rumble of engines and turned to see a column of armored vehicles moving through the streets. Soldiers marched alongside them, their uniforms bearing unfamiliar insignias. Not American, not anything I'd ever seen before. It wasn't just the foreign soldiers that froze me in place. Among them were others, people who looked like they belonged here. They guided the soldiers, pointing out buildings and shouting orders. Traitors, my mind whispered. I didn't know how I knew, but I did. These were people from my own country, working against us. Panic surged through me. I started running, weaving through the crowd. The screams were deafening now, and the heat from fires raging around me made it hard to breathe. I stumbled into an alley where a small group of people huddled, their faces pale with fear. Among them was a young boy, no older than 7, clutching a stuffed bear to his chest. He looked up at me with wide, tear-filled eyes. "Are you here to help us?" he asked, his voice trembling. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't a hero. I was just a pastor, someone who tried to offer hope to others. But something in his gaze stirred a resolve in me I didn't know I had. "Yes," I said finally. "I'll help." We moved together, the group clinging to each other as we navigated the maze of alleyways. Overhead, the sound of drones filled the air, their mechanical hum a constant reminder that we were being watched. The drones swept the streets with beams of harsh, white light, scanning for anyone who dared resist. Every time one passed, we pressed ourselves against the walls, holding our breath. It felt like they could see right through us. As we crept through the city, I began to piece together fragments of what had happened. The soldiers weren't just invaders, they were part of a coalition, a terrifying alliance of nations that had launched a coordinated attack. They had disabled communications, taken control of power grids, and paralyzed the country before most people even realized what was happening. It wasn't just a war, it was a complete takeover. The group I was with whispered rumors about safe zones and resistance camps. One man, a grizzled mechanic named Paul, seemed to know more than the rest. He spoke of an underground network fighting back, a glimmer of hope amidst the devastation. But reaching them wouldn't be easy. The city was crawling with patrols, checkpoints, and automated machines hunting for any sign of resistance. We just crossed a rubble-strewn intersection when we spotted a massive vehicle rolling toward us. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Part tank, part surveillance hub, bristling with cameras and antennas. Its spotlight swung in our direction, and we barely had time to dive behind a pile of debris before it passed. The tension was unbearable. Every shadow felt like a threat, every sound like the prelude to disaster. Eventually, we reached what was left of an old subway station. Paul said it led to a network of tunnels the resistance was using. The descent into the dark, damp space was nerve-wracking, but it offered a temporary reprieve from the chaos above. We moved in silence, the only sounds the drip of water and our own labored breathing. As we navigated the tunnels, I felt a strange pull, like something or someone was calling me. At first, I thought it was just my nerves, but the sensation grew stronger with every step. It wasn't long before we reached a large chamber where a group of resistance fighters had set up a makeshift command center. Maps and screens covered the walls and people moved with purpose, their faces etched with determination. A woman approached me. She introduced herself as Mara, one of the leaders of the resistance. She looked me up and down, her eyes sharp and assessing. "You're not from here, are you?" she said almost accusingly. "No," I admitted. "At least I don't think so." Before I could explain further, the ground shook violently. Mara shouted orders, and people scrambled to prepare for an attack. The invaders had found us. The next moments were a blur: gunfire, explosions, the acrid smell of smoke. I grabbed the boy and shielded him as the chaos erupted around us. In that moment, as I held the boy close, I found myself whispering a prayer. "Lord, give me strength. Protect us from the darkness." It wasn't just a plea for help. It was an anchor, a reminder of faith in the face of overwhelming fear. I noticed others murmuring similar prayers, and for a fleeting moment, it felt as though something larger was watching over us. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything went still. The sounds faded, the lights dimmed, and I found myself standing alone in a vast empty space. A voice echoed around me, deep and resonant. "This is not the end," it said, "but it is a warning. Go forth and prepare my people, for the trials ahead will test their faith, yet through faith they will endure." Before I could respond, the world around me dissolved. I woke up on the hiking trail, gasping for air. My body ached and my head was spinning, but I was alive. The sky above me was blue again, the sun shining brightly as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. What I'd seen, what I'd experienced, wasn't just a dream. It was a vision, a glimpse of a possible future. And though I'd returned to my life, I couldn't shake the feeling that the world was teetering on the edge of something catastrophic. I've shared this story not to scare you, but to prepare you. The warning I received wasn't just for me, it was for all of us. And while I may never fully understand why I was shown these things, I believe it's our responsibility to stay vigilant, to protect what we hold dear, and to remember that even in the darkest times, faith will light the way.